So when natural gas is produced at the wellhead, that natural gas carries ethane, propane, butane, and natural gasolines. Think of it as a cake batter. It's a mixture of all these products. And so what this gas plant does, or this fractionation plant, is it takes all those ingredients and separates them out so that we have purity ethane, purity propane, purity butane, and purity natural gasoline. These are all commodities that are trucked and railed into this region right now. And so all this gas plant is doing is really taking that natural gas that wasn't separated and separating those products out, so now that you have local supply of those purity products.
Okay. Now you mentioned that before this was something that was done elsewhere.
Correct. So prior to this, we were taking the Y grade and we were loading it on that rail rack over there, and then we were shipping it down to Louisiana or Texas, and then those ingredients were getting separated or fractionated out in Louisiana or Texas. And then you're having to bring that purity product back here to meet the local demand. So we're really eliminating all of that logistical chain that really was really inefficient. And that was the impetus for us to invest in this area, is that we knew that it was just a lot more logistically efficient to cut that out and build this facility here and separate those ingredients out to make the purity products.
So it was locally welled gas that was taken to Louisiana.
Correct.
To be processed and then brought back to sale.
So the Y grade was.
Yeah.
So the methane is sold into the pipeline, and then those ethanes, propanes, and butanes and gasolines, that's that cake batter that we commonly refer to as Y grade.
Right.
That's what we put on rail and was shipped off to the Gulf Coast up to the Northeast and fractionated out.
Okay.
And then those purity products would be railed back in because you have so much tremendous propane demand and butane demand in this market.
So who are your consumers here in this region?
So any household that you see a chicken farm, an industrial with a propane tank, those are people that will be buying the propane that we make here. All of your automobiles, whether people realize it or not, have butane in your gasoline. So all of your fuel terminals in that Knoxville area, Nashville area, they're going to be receiving our butane now that's locally made and produced and put into your gasoline, and goes into that Chevy 1500 over there.
Right. So the consumers, I guess you're cutting a lot of middleman expenses out with the transportation.
Correct.
What's the effect going to be on the consumers?
The consumers will absolutely start to see a lower price here, and probably one of the most tangible effects that the consumers will feel. We're happy to see Holston Electric here today with us, and working with Holston on taking our ethane, and they're going to generate power out of that and have some of the lowest cost power in the region. And so we're really excited about just the multitude of opportunities that this plant will bring to lower the cost for everyday consumers, for power, for propane, for gasoline. It's really an exciting project.
And so you mentioned earlier you might be about 45 days from being ready to go full 100%?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
We'll kind of start in the way where the liquids come in. This facility moves NGLs in and out, purity products in and out. So there's propane storage here, there's butane storage here, Y grade, which is a mixture of all NGLs, so to have ethane, propane, butanes, to C5+, which is condensate or natural gasoline, however you want to call it. What was originally happening here was Y grade comes in from their cryo plant, which is about 4 miles of the crow flies away from here. Cryo plants where you take wellhead gas, separate the methane, which is what everybody else would consider natural gas, what you use in stoves and everywhere else. And then when you do that, you separate out the heavies by getting it real cold. And so the heavies would be the ethane plus, or what I'm going to call Y grade from now on. What they do is they store it up there and they'll pump it to this facility. In the past, they would put the Y grade on trucks and send it out to consumers. What we've decided to do is take that Y grade instead, split it right here at the fractionation facility into its purity products and store it as purity and sell it in the local markets. So the transition on this side has been utilizing tanks for different purposes. All these tanks existed before, except for this tank on the end. When you make Y grade, it really depends on how much ethane content you have in it for what your vapor. I'm going to get real in the weeds, so I'm going to try to do it quick. But ethane has a high vapor pressure. It's hard to keep a liquid, and so at atmospheric and ambient temperatures, it likes to be a gas. And so the more of it you have in the Y grade, the higher your vapor pressure is going to be. Means the more rigid your vessel has to be to hold it. And so as you build up, you need higher pressure vessels, which are thicker, heavier. And so for here, we're getting about 40% ethane as a mixture coming in. And so it needed a vessel 500 pound plus that could hold it. And so we built this one on the end came from West Texas, and it's rated for 525 pounds. So any of the Y-grade that comes in can be stored at 100 degrees without any issues for relieving the atmosphere. So that was kind of phase one of this project. It's just a new storage vessel for those Y-grades that come in. Part two was getting those Y-grades over to the facility. So there's a new line, 2 new pumps you'll see over here. And those will be the send out pumps that'll take it to this facility. This facility will process it and then send the purity products back over and store it in these other bullet tanks. Okay, so this is the new tank. Obviously the two behind were the old ones. So the new infrastructure really sits right here. The big plan for us is everything was built for reliability. And so the pumps we have here are 2x100 is what we call them, but basically one pump can run the entire facility. If that pump has any issues, you can shut it in, work on it, do maintenance while you run the other one. Second thing is this fractionation facility will run 24/7, but it'll be manned 12 hours a day. And so that means there's a lot more controls built in. So on this tank, you'll see on the top, there's a radar, which will give you your level, and it'll bring it back inside. That level will talk to the pumps. If the level gets too low, the pump shut off. If the level gets too high, the whole facility shuts off. These pumps will run, we need 320 pounds of pressure on our side of the fence. This tank, like I talked about, could hold up to 525. And so I consider it breathing, but when it gets warmer, the pressure will go up. When it gets colder, pressure will go down. So these tanks and these pumps have to be able to counteract that. And so what we did for that, there's a little green valve back there, and that will actually work off of discharge pressure. So a pump has a curve, and when you run a pump, it's always going to be on its curve at some point. Higher pressure usually means lower flow, or lower pressure, higher flow. And so what we're going to do is we really don't care too much about what the pressure in the tank is, whether it's winter or summer. It will just read the discharge pressure, which will keep us steady for what's coming into the frac, and it'll run that little control valve, and it'll transition how much flow is going through a certain pump to keep that pressure constant. So really that's the new big stuff for this side of the fence. The rest is all piping and manifolds. When it runs out of here, the discharge goes all the way down this line, loops kind of around near the rail loading, come back in front of those 4 tanks, and then you can see this pipe bridge on the far side, and that's where the product from here, the Y-grade, goes towards the frac, and then all the purity products come back. And so we'll kind of walk that way, but there's not too much else to see. The big thing to know is when we're up and running fully on the frac, these 3 tanks will be for Y-grade. The back 2 will be left just as vacant tanks in case there's any kind of upsets, and we need to blend and put Y-grade back in those tanks, but mostly it'll be all through this one vessel, 90,000 gallons a day. We're gonna run at about 63,000 gallons a day, so we have a day and a half of downtime or storage where the cryo and the wells won't have to go off if there's any problem with the fracs. Part B is if there's a problem, we can start putting the Y-grade into the other 2 tanks. We blend with butanes that will be on site because the frac had made them, which are gonna go in these 2 middle tanks here. And so there's 150,000 gallons of storage there. We're only making 30,000 gallons of butanes at best a day. And so you got 5 days of storage there. So there's plenty of storage where everything can keep running. If there's a snowstorm like we just had, this can keep operating, even trucks can't get in here. A lot of built-in time, safeties, and ability to run. So I know for you upstream guys, it's a big deal not having to turn the wells off, but as long as Robbie keeps the cryo going, we have a lot of storage for the frac to keep running. So yeah, the main way we're gonna do it, run the frac. Second way, extra storage, blending, and send out by trucks if we have to, if we get to that point. Also have the ability to run from the other 2 tanks back through these pumps, send it over to the frac. So again, any questions as we go through here? Tank's pretty much set up the same way as the other ones were, just has these new pumps. So. That comes in the facility. I quickly talked about the purity butanes will sit in these 2 middle tanks. The remaining products that are going to come back are propane, which will sit in tanks 2, 3, and 4. And then this first tank right here is C5 plus or condensate. And so condensate's the minimal amount of liquids that come back out of the Y-grade, so it only needs 1 tank. Propane's going to be the most. It'll have the 3, butane, and then obviously the Y-grade coming in is full. So these unpainted lines and the unpainted stands are where the three products come back, one product Y grade goes over. This is what we call the meter skid right here. It's where we measure the inlet, so the Y grade come into the fractionation facility, where we measure the purity products, the propane, butanes, and C5+. And so this skid that you're looking at right here will be the odorizer skid. It's for the propane so you can stench it. So that's kind of one of the last things that we're waiting for it to come in. Everything else, it looks real busy, but I promise it's pretty close. It's just, you have to do a lot of testing for pipe and everything else as you get it in. So you don't just build it, you got x-ray, you got a hydro, you got bolt up, you got plenty of things to do. So we're really close. It's just, you're gonna see a lot of missing pieces at this point because it's all up on the hill. It gets a little tight in here, so we can walk in if you guys want to, or we can kind of talk about the elements and then move into the center and kind of see everything from there. But to follow through here, meter skids, first and last place the products go. As you come in, that Y grade will go to the first tower, which is going to be the most north or the farthest from us. It's the de-ethanizer. And essentially what the de-ethanizer does is exactly as it sounds. It takes the ethane out of it. The ethane will go overhead as a vapor. We'll recondense it. We'll use it as reflux. And then at this point, it's going to be flared up until Wes can get everything done where we turn it into power. So that's the end goal here for the ethane. Then once you take the bottoms out of the de-ethanizer, it's going to be propane plus. So it's going to be propane and everything else. That'll go to the depropanizer, which is the first tower you see here. That, just like the de-ethanizer, will take the propane out the top. There'll be a vapor, we'll recondense it, and then that goes to sales, which just comes back here and falls back out to the tanks. It'll get odorized from this skid here, and then we will take the bottom of the depropanizer, which will just have C4 plus left. It'll go to that center tower where the butanes, so isobutane, normal butane will go out the top as a vapor, get recondensed, and then get sold, and the C5 plus will come out the bottom. It'll go get chilled. It won't have to condense, it's liquid already, but we'll have to cool it down and send it back. And so this whole skid right here is basically where the heart of the plant is. Everything else is auxiliary for it. To heat the bottom of the towers, which will be up to about 250 degrees, we're using a hot oil system here, so we're not using any steam. There's the hot oil heater, it's kind of in the back corner. I'll point it out when we get over there. It'll just circulate hot oil and give us the temperature we need on the bottom. For the depropanizer and the debutanizer, we can use ambient temperatures, so the air temperatures, which is what this air cooler does. It takes both the propane vapors and the butane vapors and condenses them right here in front of us. The ethane's a little more tricky. Like I said, it doesn't like to be a liquid, so we have to get it a lot colder. So we have a propane refrigeration system on the back side of this plant right here. There's two compressors, and it makes a closed loop, which will go through the chiller, which is right on the top. That top deck right there, you can barely see it, but it'll be insulated and shiny. But the ethane vapor goes through there. It gets down to about 10 degrees because of the propane, and then the liquids will be refluxed back to the tower. That's only getting partially condensed because we don't need ethane as a liquid. We're gonna burn it as a vapor, so we're saving energy by not making it into a liquid. If we needed to, if we ever sell it in the future, it's designed and built so it can do full rates and full liquid ethane, but we're gonna save that energy and not do that at this point. The products and the towers will run off of a GC or a gas chromatograph. We have two of them in this building, this brown building right here, and there'll be a continuous analyzer, so they're all on speed loops, which means you have a little sample scoop in the line. It'll run to the GC and back into the line, and so the updates are about 7 minutes per stream. So we'll constantly be able to see if we're on spec every 7 minutes. What on spec means is we're making whatever grade of propane we want, whatever grades of butane, and then make sure our RVP on the C5 plus is met. So that'll be a continuous update. It'll help us operate. This stainless steel vessel here is in case we are not on spec and we want to keep running and we're at lower rates than max. It will shut off some of these XVs right here. Those XVs are basically on-off valves, and they'll put it back. That product that was going to get transferred to the tanks will get transferred back to the stainless steel. That stainless steel will go to a pump. The pump will inject it into the front end. They'll go back through the de-ethanizer, and that's how we have time to clean up whatever off-spec product we have and whatever issue that may be, whether the reboiler is not getting to temp, or if the air cooler, if a fan shut off, no matter what it is, it'll give us an alarm, let us know what to look at, and give us time to fix it before the whole thing shuts down. So, like I said, this meter skid, inlet and outlet area, odorizer skid, main process skid. Over in the far corners, the hot oil heater, you'll see the stack on it. In the back, we have the flare, which the ethane and any kind of emergency will go out and burn there instead of going atmosphere. And then refrigeration system on the far side. Key part for you guys that are mostly here is fuel gas for our system. I didn't go into. And so our heater will run off fuel gas. We use fuel gas as blanket gas. Essentially for startup, we laid a 4-mile line of poly going back to the cryo plant. So like I said, you strip your liquids out of that natural gas, and the natural gas is mostly just ethane. And so our stub ups right here where it's going to be connected is our fuel gas skid, but we have the opportunity to shift between either using methane or using the ethane we're making and use it as a fuel gas source here. So instead of paying for methane, we can use something that we're going to burn anyway and minimize the flaring. So the hot oil heater was designed so that it can run off of methane, a blend of methane and ethane, or straight ethane, depending on what fuel gas curve you use in it. So that's another auxiliary item here. Right here is our air compressor skid. You need air compressors to push instrument air to all the all the valves. Use it as utility air, anything else you might need in the system. So, and then the last thing you'll see over here is our MCC. That's where all the wiring, all the motors are run out of. So we have 2 big cabinets in there.